If you are moving to St. Augustine, you want to make sure that you don't make any of these 5 mistakes so that you can personally protect yourself and also prepare for the future here in St. Augustine. What's up everyone, it's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida, and if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest here in Northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. All we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in Northeastern Florida. In today's video, we're going to cover the top 5 mistakes that I see people make when buying a home, and luckily they're not making them with me because I put these videos out. I inform people to the nth degree of what they need to know when they are purchasing a home, but I've heard some of these gripes from people that didn't use me and then chose to use me when they used another realtor, and they didn't know about a lot of these changes and consequences of what they're doing. This is going to cover a couple of topics. We're going to cover neighborhoods, we're going to cover taxes, flood zones, a whole bunch of those things that you need to know about if you're considering moving to the area, and if you're looking to buy a significant chunk of property here in St. Augustine. Now, number 1 and 2 on this list are the things that I see happen the most that most people aren't prepared for. We're going to talk about taxes and we're going to talk about insurance for number 1 and 2 on this list. And the reason I want to highlight these is because these are the ones that are going to make the largest change in your monthly payment and your annual expenses. These are the things that you need to look at. So the first thing that we want to cover is taxes. Now, depending on the area that you live in, we have a whole bunch of different millage rates depending on what area you're in. So the highest tax district in St. Johns County, St. Augustine, and the city of St. Augustine Beach, both of those tax rates are like 1.9% of your purchase price. So if you're buying a $100,000 home, your taxes are going to be roughly around $1,900 per year. So if you're buying a $1 million property, your taxes are going to be right around $19,000 a year. And that's really important to know because it's going to be different depending if you're in this location or that location. Like I said, the highest tax districts are going to be City of St. Augustine and City of St. Augustine Beach, but throughout the county you're going to find a much lower millage rate, which is what our taxes are based off of. So throughout the county, on average, we're going to see about a 1.4% average tax rate throughout the entire area of St. Johns County. So that same $1 million property, your tax bill on that would go down from 19 in maybe the city of St. Augustine or St. Augustine Beach down to about $14,000 a year, which is a significant difference on your annual expenses. In many neighborhoods, especially if you're considering living in a master plan community, you also have your CDD, which is a community development district, which is a non-ad valorem tax added to your tax bill. So you have your tax bill of the 1.4% on average throughout St. Johns County, and then you also have your CDD fee, which essentially covers all of the operating and maintenance. Think of it as another HOA or a monthly maintenance that's paid annually within your community. So if you live in a community like Shearwater, Nocatee, Rivertown, all these communities have CDDs. The best way to think of them is that it's a second HOA, and a lot of times when you see the HOA and CDDs, you'll have both. The fees will be inverse. So maybe you have a $2,200 CDD fee, and then your HOA is maybe $100 for the year. That's typically how it works. So it just, for the most part, acts as an HOA. And that's how I tell customers to think of it, is a monthly maintenance that you have to factor in just like you would for an HOA. But the difference is that CDD is paid along with your tax bill. So not only do you have your 1.4% in taxes, you also have your CDD fee that's a part of that tax bill. This leads me to my next point about taxes, which is if you are buying a home with a loan, make sure you're using a lender who is licensed here in the state of Florida and also does business here in the state of Florida. They may not know how taxes may affect you in the future, which is really important. The reason I bring that up is because taxes are reassessed every single year in St. Johns County. So that means that when you buy a property today, the next year will be reassessed, the year after that will be reassessed, and every year after that it will be reassessed based on the market value in the surrounding area. But we also have the homestead exemption. So if you buy a property today, you can apply for the homestead exemption, which makes you, it's a primary a primary occupant exemption that gives you $50,000 off your taxable value, and it keeps you at an increase of a 3% annual increase year over year. So if your taxes do go up, let's say your taxes, the property value around you goes up 10%, the most that they can raise your property taxes is 3% if you have that homestead exemption. Now, this is where the problem with lenders that I was just mentioning comes into effect. If you bought a home 10, 15 years ago at a different market value and you're selling your home today, you're going to sell your home, you're going to make a ton of money, you probably have a ton of equity in there. But as a buyer, and a lot of times as a lender that doesn't know how the state operates, they'll look and they'll take a look at this owner's previous tax bill. But you got to think, their tax bill is way different than yours because their tax bill is originally based off of the market value when they purchased the home for. So if they bought it for $150,000 and that home is worth $500,000 today, they're pretty much still paying taxes based off of that $150,000 valuation if they had the property homesteaded, because that kept them at that 1.4% at $150,000, which would be their annual tax bill, and then a 3% increase for that 10 to 15 years, whatever amount, until they sold it. So really, their tax bill hasn't changed all too much compared to today. Now, once you buy that property, that's a triggering event for the tax appraiser. So they're going to come out and they're going to look at your property and they're say, hey, it's worth $500,000 now. Based off of this tax rate, your taxes are going to be around $7,000 a year. Now, many lenders will use the old tax bill from the year prior, and they'll see like, oh, hey, this guy was paying $2,000 a year for his taxes, and they'll factor that into your pre-approval and how you get the loan. And then what happens is a year after you move into your home, your taxes go from $2,000 to $7,000 with you not even understanding why that happened. And obviously this is a huge deal for many people because this is going to affect your monthly payment. You know, if you're getting a loan, you're already using someone else's money to be able to buy this property, but if your monthly payment changes by, I mean, if it's $2,000, let's say it's $2,400 for the year, you're looking at $200 a month, and it goes up to $7,000. Well, that's going to be like an extra $500 to $600 a month. So that's the main thing that you need to know about taxes, is that you need to get a clear picture on that. And actually, St. Johns County does have the property tax appraiser website where you can go on there, you can search your specific address, you can go in there, it'll pull the millage rate into it, and then you can also estimate what your property taxes will look like so that you have a good idea and you can provide that information to your lender if they're not from the state of Florida, if they don't do business here. Just do that quick. So if you go over to the St. Johns County Property Appraiser, they really have a great site that is very easy to use for anyone. You don't need to be a real estate expert or anything to use this site, but it gives you a property report card based on the address, tells you who owns it. This home just sold. It says that it's owned by Dream Finders, but it just sold a couple days ago for $920. I can see that on the MLS. But they bought this whole property for $475, looks like back in 23. They've been selling, $920,000 homes on the beach with 3,300 square feet and a 3-car garage. It was the best deal in Volano Beach for sure. But they're closing out this neighborhood. But one of the biggest things that you can do here is you can go to estimate taxes, and this is for any property. So you can type in any address on the previous screen and they'll have this tab here, and then it'll pull the tax district. So you can see here the millage rate for this tax district is 12.603. So in terms of the math, what you would do is take that $920,000 value times 0.0126013, right? So luckily they have this here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you two, right? I'm going to show you what your taxes are going to be based off of this this millage rate. So at a $920,000 sale price, estimated taxes come out to $11,593. Now, if I were to add the homestead exemption, which we talked about a little bit earlier, that brings it down slightly. Your taxes are going to be right around $11,095 for the year, right? Now, of course, this is an estimate. Now, I will say a lot of the times when we do pull these estimates, your actual tax bill tends to come in about 10 to 20% lower, but I'd rather give you the higher end and the tax bill comes in lower than I give you like, hey, your tax bill is going to be here and it comes in 10, 20% higher, right? So this is just based off the county. This is the best resource that we have. Okay, and now on to the second mistake I see people making, and that is going to be surrounding insurance. Now, obviously, we know that insurance has been a big issue in the state of Florida over the past couple of years. We've seen premiums increase across the state. We've seen a whole bunch of problems with claims, with fraud, all that kind of stuff going on. But the biggest thing that I see people make a mistake on is not having their insurance quote done within their inspection period. So if you're looking to buy a home in an area that is in a flood zone outside of flood zone X, so maybe you're buying in flood zone AE, and then you're getting a loan, you are going to be required to get flood insurance. And that flood insurance is going to be pretty costly depending on what zone you're in. If you're in flood zone X, you're not required to have flood insurance. If you're in flood zone AE or any other floodplain in the state of Florida, you're going to be required to have flood insurance, which is going to change your monthly payment because flood insurance, just like I talked about with premiums in general across the state of Florida, has gotten pretty pricey. Now, this of course depends on a lot of factors that is in particular to the home that you're interested in, right? So it could be the build of the home, could be the elevation of the home, and it also has to deal with the floodplain that the home is in. So all these factors will put into the calculation of what your cost of flood insurance will be, and also homeowners insurance. So the main mistake I see people making is not researching this and understanding what this is. I mean, it's very simple for us to look like, hey, I'm interested in this property. Can you get me an idea what a quote is for flood insurance for this property? All I got to do is send an email to my guy. I send him an email over. He gets it back to me within, typically it's like 2 hours, but I would say easily within 24 hours, he'll get back to me with a roundabout quote of what that flood insurance will look like. I also see people not doing it within their 10-day inspection. So within your 10-day inspection here in the state of Florida, you can leave for whatever reason and you get your binder deposit back, right? So you protect your money. And us as real estate professionals want to use that time frame so that we can protect your money to the nth degree. So during that time, we want to find out what insurance costs on that property, because that's going to affect you moving forward in the contract. If insurance costs too much, you're not going to want to buy the house. It maybe puts a couple more red flags into your head of why you don't want to do it. We want to do that within that 10-day inspection time so that you can get out of the contract and you can get your binder deposit back. So here in the state of Florida, we are a title state. We don't have attorneys involved. There are attorneys at the title companies, but the title company pretty much handles that transaction. And for most contracts, on average, we see about a 10-day inspection period. It could be less, it could be more. That is a negotiation point for the contract. But during that time, you can literally leave for whatever reason. If you find a house that you like better down the street, if you don't like the smell of the house when you get into it, if you just had a bad feeling when you went it, for whatever reason, you have the right to cancel your contract within that 10 days. So it's a protection for you as the buyer. The third mistake that I see people make is choosing the wrong neighborhood. Now, my goal here, whenever we talk to people, especially when we do our virtual consultations with people relocating to our area, I give people homework. I'm like, hey, before I even show you a house, I want you to get comfortable with these neighborhoods. I want you to actually spend time here so that you make sure that it's a good fit for you and your family and your lifestyle. Now, many realtors, I would say, are good people and would want you to do that, but at the same time, they also want to make a check off your home. They want you to close as soon as possible. I want you to make the right decision, right? So I give you homework and I say, hey, you know, based on the conversation that we had, you're looking for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home in a master plan community. You want new construction around $500,000. Well, hey, you need to check out this neighborhood, this neighborhood, this neighborhood, because I can show you the most perfect house that you love in a neighborhood that you don't desire. I'm wasting both of our times, right? And for you not to know the neighborhoods, it doesn't help you out either. A lot of the times that I'm working with people that are relocating, they're coming down for like, hey, I have my initial visit, I want to check out some houses. That's kind of the wrong thinking. You want to make sure that you're checking out the neighborhood so that you understand better what's right for you in your personal situation. And like I said, as a realtor, I want to sell you a house as soon as possible. If I can show you one house and sell you that house and make a whole bunch of money off it, that's ideal for me. But in reality, that doesn't happen for a lot of people, right? They come down here, they get comfortable with the neighborhoods. More than likely, you're going to be finding the house that you love when you're at home, right? You're in New Jersey, you're in New York, you're in California, wherever that is that you're relocating to our area, you're going to be home and you say, hey, you know what, Tom, I saw this house on 123 Main Street. It's already in a neighborhood that we're comfortable with. We already checked it out while we were down here. We want to take a look at it and do a virtual tour. That's an easy setup because you already know the neighborhood. That's one of the bigger things here, right? Is knowing the neighborhood. The house, we can find that perfect house anywhere, right? But the neighborhood's really important because it has to fit with your family, your lifestyle, and what you need in terms of a home. And guys, if you are relocating to the area, me and my team help a whole bunch of people do that. That's really our bread and butter of our business here. So if you need a strategy put together, make sure you click the link below. We have a strategy session that we can do. It's going to take about 30 minutes to an hour to go through it. So I'm really just trying to figure out what you guys need in the future home purchase, and then we're going to give you some neighborhoods based off of your needs. Another thing, this is kind of like a generality, but when people say like, hey, I want to live in St. Augustine. St. Augustine is a big area, right? It takes up the majority of St. Johns County. But the majority, that some of the areas of St. Augustine aren't what I would call true classic St. Augustine. Now, when we take a look at this map, we can see that the city of St. Augustine is highlighted on Google Maps, but that is one part of St. Augustine. Your address will say, so we can have Volano Beach here, your address is still St. Augustine. You have St. Augustine Beach here, your address is still St. Augustine. St. Augustine South, your address is still St. Augustine. And even when you go up to here, you go up here north of town, you have Palencia. This is still going to be St. Augustine. This is still going to be St. Augustine over here. And this is still going to be St. Augustine over here. This is all in St. Johns County. So when you take a look at St. Johns County, you can see it's a much bigger area. But I would say St. Augustine takes up probably about a third to maybe like 40% of this map here. So there's a wide area of what we mean when we're talking about St. Augustine. So the main reason that I bring this up is because St. Augustine is a huge place. The lifestyle of what people think of living in St. Augustine is going to be completely different if you're in the northern part of the county or the southern part of the county, or if you're right next to St. Augustine Beach or right next to downtown St. Augustine. And that's something to consider when you're moving to the area. There's parts of St. Augustine, and this is a joke here in town, St. Augustine is 30 minutes away from St. Augustine.
But what if?
And that's because it is such a big area, which I imagine in the future will start to be broken up a little bit. But as of right now, it is that, like, hey, St. Augustine's 30 minutes from St. Augustine. So the lifestyle that's afforded in the northern part of the county, it's still great, don't get me wrong, but it's different than being in the area of St. Augustine Beach of downtown St. Augustine. Now, if you're personally asking me, I grew up in St. Augustine Beach. I consider true St. Augustine to be the zip codes of 32080, 32084, and 32086, which is essentially all the zip codes that surround downtown St. Augustine. So we're talking about Volano Beach, we're talking about West Augustine, St. Augustine South, St. Augustine Shores, St. Augustine Beach, Crescent Beach. That's really what I consider to be true St. Augustine. Anything outside of that, yes, you have the St. Augustine address, but it's not the same lifestyle. Another big mistake that I see people making when buying a home here in St. Augustine is underestimating the costs of renovations for not only a newer home built within the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years, but also underestimating the renovations on a historic home. Both of those are going to cost you a ton of money, and they're for different reasons, right? So in general, if we're talking about renovating a home that's been built in the last 10 to 20 years, maybe you got to update a bathroom, maybe you got to update the kitchen, countertops, stuff like that. You would think it'd be, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. But we're no different than the rest of the country. Prices for everything have gone up, and the price for good labor has gone up drastically. And that, I think, is also because there is a vacuum happening right now. The people who work in the trades tend to be older, right? My generation, the millennials, right? We don't want to work hard. We don't want to get any sweat in our brow. So we're not seeing a lot of the millennial generation enter into the contracting business, doing countertops, putting in cabinets, all that kind of, being a general contractor. They're just not really gravitating towards that. So what's happening is you have this older generation of people who have been doing it for years who are now leaving the business. So that number is starting to dwindle of how many contractors there are out there. And then to find actual good contractors that will do good work, they're able to raise their prices pretty significantly, right? Because there's just not that many of them out there anymore. So you really have two choices in terms of hiring someone. You hire someone for a price that you don't want to pay to get what you want, right? That's what I have to do. I just have kind of settled that I just have expensive tastes and I like things done a certain way. I want things done 100% right. Now, if you want to hire someone for the cheaper price, you're more than likely going to come out with an end result that you're not super happy with, but it gets the job done, right? That's really the two camps that we're looking at here. And unfortunately, if you just want good work done, you have to pay the higher dollar amount. And I know that's happening across the country, but for sure we're seeing it happen here in St. Augustine. Now, the other side of that is people love downtown St. Augustine. They love the historical area. They could see the cute little houses that they have down there that have a little bit of style. A lot of the newer stuff that we talked about that's 10 to 20 years old, cookie cutter, looking kind of the same in a master plan community, where a lot of the homes surrounding downtown St. Augustine Beach are going to be much, much older than the general inventory here in our area. And with that comes a good bit of headaches, right? Because most older homes, they do have a significant amount of termite damage. It's just what it is for this area. It's not something that's like, you need to super worry about, but you also need to make sure that the home that you're buying does not have as much termite damage as you expect. Getting that done and remediated correctly, very expensive. Sometimes if you're in a historic area, then you have to build everything to the codes of the Historical Architectural Review Board in the area, also known as HARB. And that could also be very expensive and costly in terms of your time, right? Because you have to get it passed through the review board. Pretty much the exterior of the home, if you are in one of those areas, has to look as it would when it was first built. So for example, for this, I had a client interested in buying a home in downtown St. Augustine that was on the historical registry. When you do that, you can't mess with the exterior of the home. You can do whatever you want to the interior, but the exterior has to remain the same. To make the same siding for that is custom wood siding. So you have to have someone mill that siding specifically for that house. That is going to be extremely expensive, and you need to be aware about that if you're looking to buy within the historic district. Yes, you get a beautiful home, you're within walking distance to downtown St. Augustine and the waterfront there, but that doesn't come without some problems and some costs. And the fifth and final mistake that I see people make is really being apprehensive of what they want to do when they buy, right? Now, of course, some people are going to say like, of course you want them to buy as soon as possible. You're a realtor. Personally, what I recommend, if you haven't been to this area, if you're not familiar with it, come down here, get an Airbnb for a couple months until you feel comfortable in the area that you want to live, and then make the decision from there. But if you are looking to buy a home and you plan on staying in that home for the next 5 to 10 years, I know people get caught up with pricing, but real estate is a long game. Ooh, hey. And you can fact check me on this, but there hasn't been a period over the past 100 years where in a 10-year span, people didn't make money on the purchase of their property. So if you bought a home today in 10 years, more than likely, you're gonna be just fine on the investment that you made in buying a home. This is a long game, guys. You're not gonna buy a home today and sell it tomorrow. You're not gonna buy it today and sell it in a year and expect to make a profit. That's just not the world that we live in. Did that happen during the COVID years? 100%, but that was a completely different world, something that we'll probably never see before, driven by low interest rates and pandemic money. With that being said, there is a seasonality to the market, right? So if you're trying to time the market to get the best deal possible for that time, what you really want to do is look around the end of summer towards the beginning of November, December. Typically, what we see is our peak prices in July, starts to go down a little bit in August, September, October, and then beginning of November start to dip down, and then it picks up a little bit. We call it a Santa rally for the end of the year. We have snowbirds that enter the market at that point. So if you're looking for the best deal on a home, if you're looking to buy, you want to look in that September, October, November timeframe. On the flip side of that, if you are looking to sell, and let's say that the average days on market is somewhere between, depends on your area, but let's say it's around 65 days for St. Johns County. Some areas are hotter, some areas are colder. You're looking to list your home somewhere in that March, April timeframe so that you can get the top dollar price when it comes summer. And with all that being said, the goal with me and my team and anyone that we have over here is to be an advisor to you. We don't have commission breath. We're not tied to the sale as much as a lot of other realtors are, where they want you to buy, buy, buy. I want you to make the right decision for you and your family. I also want you to be able to say like, hey, Tom, he did a solid job. Tom and his team, they did a solid job for us, and I would recommend them to anyone, because at the end of the day, that's how my business grows, and that's how I want to be able to sleep at night as well. I never want to push someone into something just because I needed to make some money. So that's one of the biggest benefits, I think, of working with my team, is you're getting honesty, you're getting transparency, and you're getting someone who really just wants you to win. And that is it. So if you are looking to buy, sell, or invest here in Northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. Like I said before, all we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you already want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in St. Augustine. Until next time, guys, have a good one.